Gregg,
Karim,
welcome to the pre-show.
welcome to the pre-show.
Today we have author William Irwin, author, philosopher, professor, author of the book The Meaning of Metallica, on the program today.
We do.
Which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
June 29th, 1990. Aerosmith, Metallica, Warrant, and Black Crowes played Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. What a concert that was. I think that was my first big stadium concert.
Really?
Maybe I saw you two earlier on. I don't, or maybe not. But 1990, I was still in high school. My friend had his motorcycle license, so we took his bike to the X. I rode on the back. We took the DVP. Gregg, one of the scariest rides of my life, on the back of his motorcycle, driving southbound on the DVP from Scarborough. But I think Black Crowes had just come out with their new album, not just their new album, but I think that was their debut album. Excited to see them. I don't remember Warrant for some reason.
They were on last and you drank too much by that point?
For Warrant, yeah. They were
too much Diet Coke, I mean.
No, so we were hungry. Here's two Muslim boys at the X.
Yeah.
We're starving. And, the people are going up and down the stairs selling their stuff. And all they had was a large pepperoni pizza. So you looked at each other and said, just screw it. Let's just eat. We're hungry.
Yeah.
So that was the day that I punched my ticket to hell. June 29th, 1990.
November 14th, 1991.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Maple Leaf Gardens.
Ah.
That was an infamous night. That was a very infamous night. Amazing show. We're up in the Red Path box, like Red Path Sugars.
Yeah.
The Red Path box. Up by the boxes, we found, I think I've shared this story before, we found a small door up a ladder and opened it up, and we were playing tag on the roof of Maple Leaf Gardens.
I think you've mentioned that.
I have.
Did you watch the concert? Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, we snuck down on the floors and then back, and anyway, yeah. But that was also the night that I got that infamous tape of Nirvana's Nevermind.
Oh yes, on the way. That was on the way home, right? On the way home. We
left the Metallica show and we went to the grand opening of the Phoenix.
Okay.
The invite only event or whatever at the Phoenix. I'm sure we snuck into there. I mean, maybe we were invited, probably were, but maybe we're not, and we just snuck in.
Yeah.
But yes, it was leaving that night at the Phoenix that somebody handed me a tape, and I had no idea who it was, and we didn't listen to it till the next morning.
Wow.
So that would have been November 15th, 1991.
It was interesting though. There was two different crowds at this concert. There was the Aerosmith crowd,
the Warrant Aerosmith,
which were a mix. It was a mixed crowd, and it was a mix
like
in
mixed
comparison.
Race?
It was mixed in comparison to Metallica, which was all bros,
white dudes.
It was just white dudes screaming.
Like a trucker convoy in Ottawa.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. I think the hair was longer, and maybe that they weren't. I don't think people were growing beards back then, but just a great show all around.
Awesome.
Yeah, we didn't climb on any roofs, and we were too young to get invited anywhere. We were nobodies, so. But yes, I'm interested to chat about Metallica.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
And that's the pre-show?
And that is the pre-show.
Hi, the following podcast is brought to you by Radical Road Brewery, the best craft beer in the heart of Leslieville. Find them at 1177 Queen Street East. That's Radical Road Brewery.
Hi, this is William Irwin. I'm the author of The Meaning of Metallica, Ride the Lyrics. I'm also a professor of philosophy at King's College in Pennsylvania. And welcome to the music.
Welcome. William, Bill, it's great to have you on. I have to come clean. I have to be honest with you here. If you ask any of my kids and my wife and friends and family that, like, if you want somebody to name a song within a few bars, like the game Hurdle, we have our like all the kids were all in this family chat about Hurdle. I'm good for that. When it comes to lyrics, like the best way I can describe, when we talked about previously before the show about me as a musician, touring musician back in the day, we were playing at a bar downtown Toronto called Nag's Head Downtown. And I remember Jeff, the singer, turning to me and saying, "What did you say? Like, what are you singing in the harmonies?" And I said, "And so in hell you'll find." And he's like, "Dude, it's and so in her you'll find your sanctuary." So when I got your book and realized it was a book about the lyrics and the meaning behind it, I thought, "Ooh, I'm in deep on this one." So anyway, I just want to thank you for joining us today. I had to share that.
Well, no, thank you so much for having me. And I mean, it's true. Some people are very inclined toward the music and the instruments. And I will make my confession, and that is I don't play a musical instrument. It's one of the real shortcomings in my education and upbringing. I tried. I'm 52 now, and maybe 10 or 15 years ago, wanting to remedy that, I tried taking a few guitar lessons. It would be so cool to play the guitar. But I quickly realized that practicing for about 15 minutes a day was going to get me nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And I have really no sense of rhythm or musicality, as much as I love music. And for me, I've always tuned into the lyrics of songs as much or more than the music. And for me, bad lyrics can ruin a good song. Whereas for lots of people, it doesn't really matter. They get the emotion, they get the feeling, they get what they need, mostly from the music.
Yeah, interesting.
What do your students in philosophy class think of Bill, the author of a heavy metal book?
Well, that would have been more radical 20 or 30 years ago, I suppose. I started teaching about 25 years ago, and I could get some street cred and cool cred for being a metal fan back then. But these days, it's almost like, who cares? What does that mean? You're old? Yes, yeah. Like your dad. I like Metallica like your dad likes Metallica, right?
That's awesome.
Oh my. What drew you to Metallica as a fan, and then what drew you to really want to explore the lyrics in a book?
Yeah, so I first got into Metallica not too long after they came on the scene. I'll date myself back to 1984, and their first album, Kill 'Em All, came out in 1983. So back in 1984, I'm 14 years old, and I'm a budding young metalhead, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Ozzy, Black Sabbath. My friend Joe and I are like Beavis and Butthead before there was Beavis and Butthead on MTV, right? This is cool, that kind of thing. Metallica's Ride the Lightning came out in 84. And my friend Joe beat me to the punch on this one, as he did on lots of things, and picked up a copy of the album and made a cassette tape of it, as we did back in the day, and said, you have to listen to this. And I did. And it was, it was a step beyond the metal sound of the time, much faster, much heavier in many songs. And what really gripped me, though, in many cases, were the lyrics, because despite my goofy Beavis and Butthead type persona in a way, it was also a budding young existentialist and suffering from my own crisis of meaning and what's life all about and all this kind of thing. And the song Fade to Black on Ride the Lightning is a very somber suicide song, which actually in the sort of turnout from the lyrics turns out to be a catharsis, a real cleansing of feelings of negativity, because the death and the suicide is really imagined all the way through. And that's something that grabbed me right off the bat. And so I think young guys like myself at that time, and it may be true still to this day, tend to shy away from two things that are good for us, poetry and therapy. I needed both at that point. And in a way, Metallica's lyrics were my introduction to poetry. And in the absence of the kind of therapy that might have been better for me, they served as a kind of a therapy as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I've got to be honest with you. I struggled flipping through the suicide, like that part of the book. I've lost a best friend and a good friend and a cousin. So it was it was tough. And you're right. I mean, whether we're in our teens or in our 50s, even like thankfully we're opening up more about mental health issues and, that kind of like the struggles that people have with it. But it's interesting you say that. I mean, you look at the movements like Movember that started out prostates, moved into men's mental health. It's like, even in our 50s, I'm not sure we're really, all getting the help, but getting the support that we get.
There's still potentially a stigma, and there's still a sort of macho kind of resistance for admitting that you might need that kind of help. And, I certainly did. And it was cool hearing it from Metallica in my case, right? Because they were these sort of alpha male, tough guys, at least that was the appearance of it. And, other people might have been at the same time listening to the Smiths or something and getting what they needed. But that wasn't appealing to me. Right. And so I'm glad that I found, these thoughts and these emotions and feelings expressed there. Right. And that's one of the sort of misconceptions a lot of people have about Metallica, is that it's just all angry. But there's a great deal of vulnerability and emotional range and depth that we see in the music and the lyrics.
For sure. And I think you see that, and again, sort of, anyway, I think you also see that when you watch some kind of monster doc. Like, that's just in fact, it goes kind of weird with the therapist at the end, but we'll leave that part out. But yeah, like you really, at least I saw a lot of that through that documentary, and again, it was later in their career, but just like, I think it was the Saint Anger. Wasn't that when they were recording Saint Anger, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. So yeah, it was really, fascinating to see that and see that process and have them recognize the struggles all the way leading up to that point. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, in some ways it's a train wreck that you can't take your eyes off of. But it's in some ways an embarrassment, but it's really a gutsy thing to put it all out there, sort of warts and all for people to see. And of course, it's easy to mock and to parody and all of that kind of thing in some ways. But good for them for being that honest in that way. And to me, that's one of the things that, if I think back to what struck me early on with Metallica and has been part of my conversation with them ever since, is a certain authenticity, right? And a being who they are. And you saw that with them early on, in the sense that they had sort of a punk rock mentality, and that they wore jeans and T-shirts, they dressed like their fans, and whether they were on stage or just hanging out, and that sort of authenticity was something that they prized. And of course, over the years, maybe it was compromised in places, and certainly some fans would tell you so, and they jumped ship at one stage or another because of sellout or whatever the case may be. But that's certainly part of what has always spoken to me about the band and the lyrics, is an ongoing dialogue with what it means to be your genuine self and to be authentic.
It's interesting that a professor yourself has written this book studying lyrics, and right away I started thinking about the art, because you also talk about Metallica music as art.
Yeah.
It's not something you listen to dance to. It's you listen to it, and you need to almost sit still or stand still and listen to it and drive meaning out of it, as if you were standing in an art gallery looking at a massive painting. You need to sit still and look at it and sort of breathe in what you're seeing, or in this case what you're listening to. Why is it, and I'll ask you this as a professor, someone in the education system, we don't seem to study songwriters in the same way we study poetry or Shakespeare or popular literature. Only recently do we see Bob Dylan, winning awards, Kendrick Lamar winning awards, for what we call, pop music today, right? This is, popular music. Why is that? And is there a change that you're seeing?
Yeah, well, I think the professors are always the last ones to get it right and to show up and recognize what's valuable. I mean, and that includes even Shakespeare, who, was not considered the stuff that you would teach and study in university until the 19th century. I mean, it had to be written in Greek or Latin for a long time for it to be considered worth studying. So you just have that long trajectory, right? And film and television are now finding their place in academic studies. For a long time, it was looked at as if film were just this, lazy, unsophisticated medium. And so song lyrics and popular music in general has some hurdles to clear, right? First of all, I like to think of song lyrics, at least many of them, as being a kind of rock poetry. But the problem with it is that you can't just read the lyrics as printed on a page and pick up on them as they're meant to be, right? So you mentioned Bob Dylan, nicely honored with the Nobel Prize, but very few of Dylan's songs stand up just plain old on paper as something you'd want to read in poetry. You have to hear them with the accompanying music, which is how they're meant to be heard. And although Dylan is covered by many people, I think to really get an authentic sense of a lot of Dylan, you want to hear him in his own unique voice presenting it. And it has the sort of negative connotation of being easy, right? What work are you doing by, in the first case, listening or watching a movie or a television show, or maybe even easier, just sitting back and listening to music? Well, fair enough, but we get to the distinction that you highlighted, Karim, about difference between art and entertainment, right? There's music, which can be very good music that you just dance to or put on for a certain kind of mood. And then there's, art, which there's music which is really more in the realm of art meant to be contemplated, taken seriously. And this is the sort of thing that we readily do with classical music, more and more with jazz, I think. And I think we're going to see more and more the movement into taking very seriously more popular music. I mean, certainly with the likes of people like Dylan or Leonard Cohen or people like that are sort of easy to take seriously and are a few generations ahead of some of the music we might be talking about now with Metallica or Kendrick Lamar or something like that. And with the endorsement of older generations, things tend to gain more ready acceptance. But and I think Metallica's music, and of course, I tend to contrast Metallica with Van Halen. Van Halen, the instrumental chops are just incredible, right? Eddie Van Halen as a guitarist, his brother as a drummer, and the bass player as well. I mean, they're great musicians, but they're really not making music for you just to kind of contemplate. It sets a mood. The lyrics are generally just fun. There can be some kind of cool rhyming and storytelling, but they're generally not meant to be contemplated. Whereas
so hot for teachers not going to show up on your syllabus is what you're saying.
Not with me teaching, right? I don't have I don't have the looks, but
But it's funny you say that, because the lyrics aren't there, but when you talk about the musicianship, like when I think of Van Halen from a lyrics perspective, I think harmonies, which again, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, right? Which is where I'm listening to the music, I'm listening to the instrumental, that kind of thing. So to me, Van Halen are some of the best harmonies in rock. But you're right, the lyrics are, hot for teacher, or
might as well jump.
I mean, they're perfectly good for what they are, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, David Lee Roth was really a kind of a genius for what he did, but it's not anything too profound. Although, it captures a certain, spirit of the time or whatever else you can give credit there.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at that first Van Halen album, like I look at the first Metallica album, like a lot of them, they're just perfect pieces. Again, me not being a lyricist person or lyrics person, but just perfect pieces.
I wanted to ask you about specifically James Hetfield's lyrics over time. Because I know you sort of picked themes, but I'm curious if you noticed over time. I don't know. Did he was he more? Is he becoming more angrier? Is he becoming mellow? More happy? I'm curious if you discovered that in writing this book.
Yeah, so it's a good question. Although the book's not, I should say for listeners who are curious, right? It's not a catalog of their songs one by one. This is what it's about, right? The book is organized thematically. So I have songs from different albums that are sort of talking to one another on a given theme, right? So like, for example, on religion, we'll have an early song like Creeping Death, which will then talk to in a song on the next album, Leper Messiah, and then onto the Black Album with the God That Failed, that kind of thing. So I'm not strictly speaking analyzing historically, but your question's a good one about what observations there are to make across time. And I'm not sure what I have to say here is particularly unique. Other people have noted it, but the very first album, which Gregg had mentioned, Kill 'Em All, is really very sort of fantasy based and comes closest to treading some heavy metal cliches, although even there, it manages not to take the dive into straight out Satanism or misogyny or, motorcycles or any of that kind of stuff. But one of the interesting things for me about the first album is that a lot of the lyrics are coming across in first person plural, a lot of we, right? And A lot of it is about kind of joining together as this band is joining together and as they're looking to sort of recruit a following. And really, it's a kind of a mission statement for them, setting the cause out and calling others to join it and sort of ride with the Four Horsemen, one of the notable tracks on that album. The second and third albums, Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets, are, quantum leaps ahead in terms of lyrical sophistication. And here there's a lot of stuff that's sort of topical and maybe vaguely personal, but not written in the form of personal reflection, right? So we have things like Cold War, fears with Fight Fire with Fire and the nuclear Armageddon and that sort of thing. We have a death penalty kind of song with Ride the Lightning itself, and just sort of reflections on war. The song that first struck me, Fade to Black, on suicide potential there, although that was not really written from a point of existential despair itself, but actually the story behind that song is just a moment of real down when some equipment was stolen. But so taking it further, it's really when then we get Injustice for All, where some political themes come in, and some people are particularly fond of those. But we get to the Black Album, which is the album where people started really crying sellout. And I think it's there that the lyrics really turn most personal for the first time. And really have a greater depth in poetry in some ways than we've seen before. And so to answer your question, are the lyrics mellowing? Is he getting less angry? I don't think so. In fact, one of my favorite of the more recent albums is Death Magnetic, which not only has some very grim themes in terms of subtle suicide and the attraction of death, but also a sense of grappling, I think, with fans' rejection and perhaps the sense of being through and a has-been, and can you make the comeback, and can you deliver the way that you once did. So I think, that there's a real emotional range, but there's always a lot of tapping into some of the darker stuff when it comes to putting the lyrics together.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioning about Death Magnetic. I remember. I think one of the kids got me the CD for birthday, Christmas, whatever it was. And I remember posting on or tweeting or whatever and saying, nothing says, because we were driving from Sudbury over to the Manitoulin, which is across Northern Ontario towards the cottage. And I said, nothing says Northern Ontario serenity like listening to Death Magnetic. And my wife and I were just like, we just had it going. It was just, yeah, I love that album. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just you mentioning it reminded me of that experience of, just beautiful surroundings. Everything's just Northern Ontario. And there we are, just cranking out.
Right. I don't think Northern Ontario, but I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out. My grandfather came from Lindsay, Ontario, which, if I'm not mistaken, is sort of Southern Ontario, right?
That's the Kawarthas. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going back almost 100 years at this point when my grandfather came this way. But I remember the stories about Lindsay, Ontario back in his day, where you could get venison from the butcher and, shoveling the snow off the pond to play pond hockey and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill, was there anything, because, you talk about as a 14, 15-year-old being enthralled with the lyrics right away. So I'm curious, as you took time off to write and research this, was there anything new that you discovered about lyrics themselves, or about James, or maybe some of the context around writing a particular song that you found fascinating or did not know before?
Well, there are lots of little things, I would say, because what my process for writing this book was a little strange in that I would sing the songs to myself, and not only can I not play an instrument, but I can't carry a tune. And with a band like Metallica, when you're a big fan like I am, I mean, I've listened to the songs hundreds of times, maybe some of them thousands. I'm not even sure how to get a good estimate on that, right? And the last thing that I wanted to do is make this not fun for myself and ruin these songs for me such that I could never hear them again. So what I did was teach myself the lyrics, sort of memorize them, and I would sing them to myself repeatedly, sometimes out loud in the shower, walking the dog, that kind of thing, but sometimes just in my head. So, I mean, I discovered lots of just kind of little things by sort of reverse engineering the lyrics that way and hearing them as a singer does and as the writer does. I'm sure, Gregg can attest as a musician that you really learn something about the song by learning to play the song. But one of the more interesting examples that I came across in learning the songs inside out that way was the song Unforgiven 2, the Unforgiven 2. Fans know that there's a trilogy, the first Unforgiven, which came on the Black Album, and then we have Unforgiven 2 is on the Reload album, and then Death Magnetic, which we were just referencing as the Unforgiven 3. Anyway, so we've got like the Rocky sequence or something going on there. But I listened to that song hundreds of times, I'm sure, and was fond of it. But I had never realized that the narrator actually kills the girl who is, or the woman, I should probably say, who's referenced in the song. And by the time you get to the end of it, once you realize that, it becomes sort of undeniable, right? He's talking about now, her eyes are closed and dead sure she'll be there. There are all these, lines that just make it absolutely clear. And I had never made sense of that before. And it causes some trouble because it's part of a trilogy when you get to the Unforgiven 3, which, and really all these songs are about the first two in particular, not being able to forgive other people because what they've done for you. And the third one becomes about the realization of, I need to forgive myself and I can't forgive myself. But you would lose some sympathy for this narrator for sure if it's the same narrator who kills the woman in the previous song. So as I interpret it anyway, for the sake of being charitable to the narrator, I think we should imagine in the second song that he entertains the idea of killing her and then ultimately walks away from it. At least that's what I'd like to hope.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think of the chapter in the book, Insanity and Confusion. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's really interesting because the one thing that I sort of going off Metallica, but like skimming through that or reading through that, it reminded me of, and I just learned about this again, I'm not a lyrics guy. I learned about the lyrics behind Alice in Chains' Rooster and Jerry Cantrell writing that about his father coming back from, I can't remember which war, but I don't know,
Korea or Vietnam?
Yeah, it was Vietnam or something. But anyway, it was like, as soon as I understood what the lyrics were, and again, it's me, I was like, I had to sit back and go, holy shit, like this song means something completely different. Because again, I've loved the song, I love the music, I love the musicianship, but then all of a sudden it's like, wow. Anyway, sorry, that's what. So that chapter reminded me of that. Yeah.
No, I mean that's a great example, and that's an example where the sort of biography of the songwriter comes into play. I mean, you can understand and appreciate the Rooster without necessarily knowing that, and it's not necessarily about a farm animal.
A happy song,
right? But it puts another spin on it altogether once you have that piece of inside information there. So I mean, that kind of thing really informs a good bit of Metallica. on the issue of religion. Many fans know, but casual listeners may not, that James Hetfield, right, the lyricist, was raised as a Christian Scientist.
I was blown away when I read that, sir.
Yeah, in a very sort of fundamentalist environment. And, that was really scarring for him. And his mother died when he was 16 and basically didn't have to die. And his father, who was really the draconian taskmaster, had actually abandoned the family. So really he's orphaned at age 16 and has to move in with an older brother. And so there's real venom towards organized religion. And this is an illustration of what I was saying before about how it starts off sort of general and topical, the lyrics. So like on Ride the Lightning, we have the song Creeping Death, which is about the Passover, basically. We're coming up in that time as we record this, and the flight from Egypt, and this sort of gnarly Old Testament God who's going to kill the Egyptians to free the Hebrews and harden Pharaoh's heart and all that kind of thing. So, this is coming right out of his own upbringing and education, Sunday school wise. But implicit in that song, you can't listen to that song and think, hey, God's a good guy. God comes across as well, frankly, he does in the Old Testament, if you pay attention a lot of times too, is like Tony Soprano, really needs a lot of loyalty and is going to, take vengeance if he doesn't get it. But that's the implicit critique. And it also doesn't go the route of the heavy metal cliche of just diving into Satanism for the sake of shock and awe and that kind of thing. So then the next album, we have Leper Messiah, which is a song really about 80s excess and all the televangelists and the way in which, money and religion mix together. But not until the Black Album, again, which is the album a lot of fans sort of jump ship on if they had been hardcore all along, do we get the song The God That Failed, which, if you look at the lyrics to that and listen to the song and pay attention to the lyrics with the idea in mind that this is written by someone who was raised as a Christian Scientist and was really scarred by that upbringing and saw his own mother die as a result of it. It really begins to hit home and really is very personal in its expression.
Did you ever feel, because you talk in the book about, you haven't spoken to James about this, you haven't talked to the band. Did you ever feel that you wanted to or needed to better understand context?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I wanted to, and I had the request out there.
Okay.
I was dealt with very professionally and politely, and I appreciate that. Hetfield is just really very close to the vest. He doesn't give away a lot, and he doesn't do a lot of interviews, period. And when he doesn't give a lot away in terms of details about, what's the inspiration for a song or what you think about it. And I certainly respect that. My hope is that maybe he'll read this. I've sent copies to the management and that sort of thing, and maybe he'll think that I did his lyrics some justice, and maybe I'll get a chance to talk with him in the future, because I'd love to know about process in watching some of the behind the scenes. And, Gregg mentioned this before, even with Saint Anger and Some Kind of Monster, you see, and that was, widely regarded as their weakest album. But even there, you see all kinds of process in terms of the revision of the music. And this is something that all, really serious musicians do. But I'd love to know more about the revision process and the process that goes on for him in writing the lyrics. I gather from hearing little bits and pieces that, like most musicians, he writes the music first, and the lyrics tend to come later. But still, I'm sure there are great stories about this this song started out being about this lyrically and turned into this for that reason. And that'd be a great book for him to write himself at some point. Or if he's looking for a co-author, he'd certainly count on me.
Perfect.
For sure. So, speaking about lyrics, Bill, you need to tell us about your Twitter account. It's a poetry book.
Yeah. So I've published in the past year. This was my pandemic project. I told you that young guys, at least back in my time, tended to shy away from poetry and therapy. Well, I got to therapy at some point, and I really did want to become a poet. In fact, I got thrown in the back of a police cruiser when I was about 17 or 18. And the cop wanted to, scare me, which he did. That was enough to scare me. But he asked me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" Basically like, "No, you got to stay out of trouble." And I said, "Well, I'd really like to be a poet." And so he didn't know what to say to that. And at the time, I was thinking this is probably a good experience for becoming a poet. So during the pandemic, I'd always written a little bit here or there, but it was something that I had put aside and I've come back to. And so what you're referencing, Karim, is the poems that I've produced are all quite short. Yeah. This is my sort of aesthetic taste in poetry, that it just be almost like a haiku without observing the syllable count or anything like that. And so all of my poems fit in a tweet. And so I tweet out a couple of the poems every day. No need to buy the book, although it would be great if anybody does. You can just follow my Twitter account.
Honest mouth, yellow teeth, tell truth.
Well, if anybody's seeing the video, you can see I've got yellowish kind of teeth. So maybe that's patting myself on the back. So yellow teeth tell truth, right? I mean, there are lots of, and I'm not pointing the finger at any of the nice smiles I see on your faces, but there are lots of smiles out there these days where if the pearly whites are sort of glossed, and that's just a stand-in, right, for all the ways in which we put forward a sort of false appearance.
Too perfect.
For the sake of impressing others.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So when we talked earlier, mentioned about over time, so we're going to expect your poetry to stand the test of time and become something that's studied. And you're also telling me, I think, that throwing it back to earlier in the conversation, that, you're saying Morrissey has a chance beyond the, sort of depressed girls I dated in the 80s. So that'll be interesting to see. Yeah. Bill, before we wrap it up, really, one of the questions we love to ask our guests, and it could be Metallica and it doesn't have to be Metallica, but the question that I love to ask is, what's in your earbuds lately? What are you listening to that people should be checking out?
Wow. I'm kind of old, and not anything much that I'm listening to these days is new. Right. I'll tell you what I've sort of discovered or rediscovered, and that's the Allman Brothers. Partly because, and I'm sure as a musician, Gregg in particular, you can appreciate the musicianship there. A friend of mine, give him a shout out, Ronnie and my friend Bob play in an Allman Brothers tribute band called Soulshine, and I went to check them out, and I got the whole family listening to the Allman Brothers for about a week before going to see them. They've stayed with me. And so probably next up is Government Mule, which is an interesting Metallica tie-in that you might not know about. James Hetfield is a big fan of Government Mule, and I think the guy's name is Warren Haynes, the singer, guitar player, actually Jason Newsted, who had been the bass player, actually played a little bit with Government Mule for a short time. So there's some crossover there, and people who know the Allman Brothers and Government Mule will know that my friend's band Soulshine is the title of a Warren Haynes song that he did with Allman Brothers, and then took into his Government Mule days. So that's up next for me.
Excellent. Thank you,
Bill. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been a really fun chat with you.
Thanks, Karim. Thanks, Gregg.
Is The Meaning of Metallica, Ride the Lyrics. We've been speaking with author Bill Irwin. You can order this book at your local bookstore. Probably by the time this gets out, I think this episode will come out the day before your book is released. Go to your local bookstore, pick it up, go online, buy it, especially if you're a fan of Metallica, but even if you're not, a great book to dive into. To read about lyrics. Just think of this as the liner notes for Metallica.
All right.
Thank you so much, Bill. This has been fun.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.